Today we'll be covering Chapter 2 Biological Basis of Behavior from General Psychology BPCG 171 Indira Gandhi National Open University IGNOU. So these are some course objectives. This is the structure and then these are the objectives. And from here our chapter starts. But let me tell you quickly that the important parts are I think the brain, the structure of the brain, the neurons and the endocrine glands. That's all that there is to this chapter. The nervous system, the structure of the brain has been included inside the nervous system. So let's start with the neuron. It's not actually properly defined in this book, so I'll try to define it as well as I can. Neuron is the smallest unit of nervous system. So let us say that there is a big system here. This is our system, or you can take this as let's take it as CPU. This is a CPU. Then the smallest unit, the smallest individual working unit that would be in this CPU. You must have seen a chip, and there are several small structures on it. So the smallest structure, the smallest single individual smallest structure in the case of nervous system would be called a neuron. Okay. Just like cell is in a body, in the body the cell is the smallest working system. In the nervous system, the neuron is the smallest unit. Before proceeding to discuss the main nervous system, we must first understand neuron. Like before understanding the organ or the head functions, we first try to find out how a cell functions, right? In the same way, we'll first try to find out how a neuron functions and what are its types and the structure of a neuron and its functions. Obviously, it is neuron which converts stimulation from different stimuli into electrical impulse. So what does it do? It converts stimulation that is feeling of a touch, stimulation, like to stimulate something, and it converts it into what? Into an kind of electrical impulse, like into an kind of electric current or an electric signal. Okay, it converts stimulation into an electric current. So what is stimulation or to stimulate? Stimulation is nothing but to encourage the development or increase activity, or raise levels of physiological or nervous activity in the body, or encourage or arouse interest or enthusiasm in. So it's basically like to make some reaction, to form a kind of reaction, like to do something so that the body creates a reaction for it. See, if I touch you, then I stimulated you, right? Because your body would react to it in some way or the other. It would at least try to feel its presence. If I bring a very cold thing near you, then your body will again feel stimulation. If I bring a very hot thing near you, again it will feel stimulation. Why? Because it makes your body react to the outer substance. So stimulation is nothing but but to make the body react to a particular substance, to a particular occurring or happening. That is stimulation. So it converts the signal of arousing the interest in the body, or the signal that something is happening or something needs to be changed, that some change needs to be brought inside the body. That signal is changed into stimuli. Now what is stimuli? Before we go on further, we first must find out what is stimuli. So stimuli is nothing but a thing or event that evokes a specific functional reaction in an organ or a tissue. So stimuli is nothing but a kind of reaction, a particular kind of reaction. See, everything has different stimuli. If I touch you, you will have a different kind of stimuli. If I place something very cold near you, you will have a different kind of stimuli. If I place something very hot near you, you will again have a different kind of stimuli. So stimuli is nothing but a kind of reaction, a particular reaction to a particular thing. See, these are four kinds of stimuli. There can be infinite kinds of stimuli. So this one kind of stimuli is based on hot objects. This is based on cold objects. This is based on sharp objects. This is based on blunt objects, right? Blunt objects are those which are not sharp, which have a very big surface at the front. Like this can be taken as sharp, but this area at the back, this is blunt. This covers a very large area. So there can be infinite type of stimuli. So what it does, that it converts stimulation from different kinds of stimuli, from different kind of objects, or from different kinds of occurrences that may create a stimulation inside the body, into an electric current, into an electric jolt, in electrical impulse. Electrical impulse is nothing but a kind of electrical message, you can say, a kind of electric sensation, right? So moving on now, structurally, a neuron is divided according to its structure. It is divided into three different parts. That is dendrite, cell body, and axon. This area, this web structure is dendrite. Then cell body, this area, the inside the area underneath it. This is the purple one. This is the cell body, and axon. The end part is the axon. Forget about all this area and this thing. This won't be considered, only just this much part. This much part only. From here to here, only this part is the neuron, of which this webbed structure, this branches type structure, is dendrite. The inside of it is cell body, and this in the center is nucleus, obviously, and the end part here, it is axon, which is connected again to something else, right? So the dendrite is a bushy structure, right? We can see the dendrite is a very kind of bushy structure. Its main function is to receive nerve impulses. So what does it say? Impulse is nothing but a kind of message. It receives a nerve impulse. I think it's better to understand what impulse is again. Right. So impulse is a sudden, strong and unreflective urge or desire to act, or something that causes something to happen. Right. So a kind of feeling that makes you do something, that can be said an impulse. So the nerve impulse, that is this kind of feeling that is received from the nerves, right? So this kind of feeling received from the nerves by what? Nerves. So not nerves, nerves. So it is taken by, or it is felt by dendrite, right? And it is this nerve impulse is taken from other neurons, and then it sends it to the cell body. Now what is the cell body? This is the cell body. The inside of it is the cell body. The cell body, also called soma, is the second main part of neuron. It is filled with the liquid called, this purple thing is liquid. And what is this liquid called? It's called cytoplasm. And nucleus is in its center. It sends nerve impulse to another neuron through axon and keeps the nerve cell alive and healthy. Now through this axon, the nerve signal is then again forwarded to another cell, to another neuron. And it also keeps the nerve cell alive and healthy. The axon is a long structure having end buttons known as end brush. So you can clearly see that there is no mention of end brush in here, right? It's nowhere written what is end brush in a neuron. So the diagram seems very incomplete and is not good for learning anything, right? So it will be better if I show it to you somewhere else. So now they haven't even defined what an axon is. Axon is not just this limited part. This whole structure is a part of axon, and the stuff inside it, these yellowish substance, this is myelin sheath, right? Myelin sheath. So I'll show you what the end brush is. See, this is end brush. This part, the end part here, it is end brush. You can clearly see this is the basic diagram of a neuron. This is a very well defined diagram to end brushes. So the axon terminal that they are saying in this book is actually the end brush, right? So the axon is a long structure having end buttons known as end brush. It functions to receive nerve impulse coming from cell body and sends it to the end brush. Now this is again not very well defined. See, right? This book is poorly written, I think. Anyways, so the signal, the nerve impulse is sent through this axon, through this structure, and finally to the end brush. This part is the end brush. Now they're saying that end brush is also a part of these buttons. These buttons are part of the axon, not of the end brush. This is the end brush, the axon terminal. Now classification and types of neuron. I don't think I need to go into depth in here. Classification on the basis of the functions of the neuron. Now sensory neuron, obviously as the name suggests, they sense. They are responsible for carrying nerve impulse. And how do we sense things? We sense things through our nerve impulses. Nerve impulse from sense organ, right? We have sensory organs at the front, like this skin. Skin is a sensory organ. If I touch this, then a kind of signal is stimulated, a kind of stimulation is carried through my nerve cells to my neuron and then to my brain. They are responsible for carrying nerve impulse from sense organ to the brain and spinal cord. So sensory neuron. Now there are different kinds of neuron, right? Neuron is not only of one kind, there are several types of neuron. Now they are responsible for carrying nerve impulse from sense organ. See, suppose this is my sense organ, skin here is my sense organ. Skin feels a kind of stimuli, it generates an electrical impulse. Since my skin gets in contact with the page, it suddenly feels a kind of stimuli, right? Because it feels the sensation of this page. So the sensation of this page creates an electrical impulse. Now this electrical impulse is carried out to my sensory neuron. Now sensory neuron can be anywhere, right? It's not supposed to be like it would be on the top of the skin or in the hand itself. It can even be near the brain. So electrical impulse is carried through the sensory organ to the sensory neuron, through the sense organ to the sensory neuron, and from the sensory neuron to the brain or the spinal cord wherever necessary. Now motor neuron, they are responsible to carry nerve impulse from brain and spinal cord to effector muscles, right? Nerve impulse is carried both way. See, suppose this is your brain in here, this structure is here your brain, and this is the kind of this is your hand, these are your hands, and this is the nerves, these are the nerve system that carries your impulses, your electrical impulse, right? This is a kind of tube, let's say these are your nerves, and then here is something, here is any object, and you touch this object, suddenly a stimuli is generated here. A stimuli is nothing but a stimulation takes place, or stimuli is a reaction. A stimuli reaction takes place here. Nerve impulses are generated in your sensory organ. This is your sensory organ, your hand, your palm. Nerve impulses are generated here. And then nerve impulses are taken through the neurons. I don't know how they are taken inside, but eventually they are taken inside, maybe through the nerves or through whatever method they have, but they are taken here towards the sensory neurons, right? Towards the sensory neurons. Sensory neurons cannot be, it's not important for them to be located right at the brain or at the top of the hand. They can be located anywhere, right? I don't know exactly where the location is, but it can vary. So nerve impulse that was generated at the hand or in the sense organ is taken to the sensory neuron. Now sensory neuron processes this electrical impulse or nerve impulse, and then it sends them to the brain or spinal cord. Now it would be better for us if we differentiate between the nerve impulse and the electrical impulse. So I'm not very sure about the difference between the nerve impulse and electrical impulse. I'd advise you to check it thoroughly after you're done with this video. Anyways, nerve impulse is generated here in the sense organ, and then through some kind of transmission method it is taken to the neuron. Neuron processes this nerve impulse and then sends it to the brain or the spinal cord, here the spinal cord, wherever necessary, right? This is sensory neuron. This is the work of the sensory neuron. Now on the other hand, we talking about the motor neuron. So what does motor neuron do? Motor neurons actually take impulses. They actually receive nerve impulse from the brain itself, from the brain or the spinal cord itself. In this case, the nerve impulse was received through the stimulation of an object, right? So you can say in a way it was received through the object, through an outer object. The nerve impulse was created through an outer object's presence. But in the case of a motor neuron, the nerve impulse is already present in the brain, and from the brain it is taken towards the what? Towards the effector muscles, so that organism can respond accordingly to the nerve impulse that it has received, right? So nerve impulse is generated here in the brain, then through some kind of transmission method again it is taken to the effector muscles, right? Through the motor neuron. It is processed through the motor neuron. From the motor neuron it is received by the effector muscles. Effector muscles are nothing but the muscles that will be affected through the through the nerve impulse, and then the effector muscles or the muscles involved with the nerve impulse act accordingly with the instructions received from the nerve impulse, right? This was the work of the motor neuron. Now association neuron, also known as interneurons, these neurons are found only within the brain and spinal cord. The main function of these neurons are to receive sensory information, process it, and decide how to respond from it. So they receive sensory information regarding some kind of like information about some particular thing. Like see, this is a cap. I see it with my eyes, right? And then my brain starts processing like what can this be. So it is a kind of sensory information, like about what the definition of this object, or what it object can be, what it can do, what is its uses, and all these kinds of information are sensory information. And then what does the main function of these neurons, of association neuron, is to receive this sensory information, and then they process it, and then they decide how to act upon it. Like this cap is okay, it's put up here, and my brain starts processing like this is a cap, this is used, here it is used, and then it sends this information to the association neuron, right? And now the neuron decides what to do with this cap. Do I need this cap right now, or do I not need this cap? Is this cap necessary for me right now, or is it not necessary, right? And then according to it, it decides what to do, whether to throw this cap, to leave it as it is, or to put this cap on the pen, right? So this is the work of association neuron. Now there is a classification of neurons based on the structure too. There are three kinds of structure again here. That is unipolar, bipolar, multipolar. Unipolar neurons, these neurons have one axon. I think we're clear with what axon is, right? This whole structure is called axon. This structure here is axon. So they have only one axon that separates from the soma and branches into two. It separates from soma. Now that we don't know what soma is, right? We don't know what is soma. Again, we'll have to search for what soma is. That's why I'm saying that this is not a very good book. Here, I think it was written somewhere. Yeah, the cell body is called soma. I think they should have put it in some bracket here, so it would be easily available to us, but they haven't done this much work. Anyways, this cell body is called the soma. See, this is the second main part of the neuron, and it is filled with the cytoplasm, right? And in the middle of it is nucleus. Anyways, this whole structure, the cell body, is known as soma. So where is soma? In this case, where is the soma? This is nucleus. We can clearly see that this is nucleus. So obviously this whitish part is soma. In here also this whitish part is soma, right? So based on structure, there are three types of neurons, and we know, right? These separates from the soma and branches into two. So this is one axon. There is only one axon which has separated from this soma. This is the soma, and it separates from the and this axon separates from the soma and then branches into two. This is the one branch, this is second branch, right? It branches into two. Despite its branching into two, it is still called unipolar, that is having one pole. So unipolar neuron. These neurons are involved in sensory function. Sensory function, we've already talked about what are sensory functions. They receive nerve impulses from sense organ, and then pass it on to the brain or spinal cord. They send impulses received from the environment to the central nervous system. Now this is bipolar neuron. Bipolar neuron is branched into two, and bipolar neurons contain two axons that forms up from the soma or the cell body. Now as you can see, there are two axons. In this case, only one axon is connected to the soma, but in this case, two axons are actually directly connected with the soma. This is the soma, and two axons are directly connected with it, right? So they have one axon and one dendrite. One axon, but it is showing that they have only one axon in here. One axon, and the other one is dendrite. What was dendrite? Dendrite is nothing but the branched part, right? Separate itself into the dendrites of these neurons are always placed at the opposite end of the soma. They are very few in numbers and can be found in the retina of the eye, the inner ear, and in the olfactory path, right? So they have given even the destination where they are found. So this was what bipolar neuron. I think it would be better to read about bipolar somewhere else, right? Let's read about it here. A bipolar neuron or bipolar cell is a type of neuron that has two extensions. Now it has two extensions, not two axons, only two extensions, right? It is extended from two sides. One axon and one dendrite. This is one axon and one dendrite. Many bipolar cells are specialized sensory neurons for the transmission of sense. So they have two branches, two extensions. One is of axon and the other of is of dendrite. And axon or dendrite has definitely two different things, as we can see from this place. This is the axon, this is axon, and then this is dendrite. Now you are not to be confused with this. I know they look very identical, but this end part is axon terminal or the end brush, but and this starting part is the dendrite, right? So this is a very long cell. You can say in a sense that this is a very long cell. This here is the dendrite, that is the starting or the branching part, and then this here is the what? This here is what? It's a end brush. It's an end brush or the axon terminal, right? So this is completely one axon, and this but as you can see in this part, the axon was in the end. See, this is axon, and then comes the soma or the cell body, and in the end with the cell body or the soma is connected with dendrite. But in this case, here is the axon, right? Then comes soma, and then again comes axon. This is taken as a one axon, right? This is not taken as two different axons. This is taken as a single or one axon. And then here comes the dendrite part, and this is the end brush part. So one axon is connected directly with both dendrite and the end brush part. Whereas in the original neuron cell, one axon was connected either with the cell body or the end brush or axon terminal. Now talking about multipolar neurons, these neurons have only one axon but several dendrites. They are located in our brain and spinal cord. Now as you can see clearly from it, this is one axon, one end brush, and axon and end brush will always be connected. This is to be certain. This is the axon and end brush again, end brush or axon terminal there is. Then again axon and axon terminal, again axon and axon terminal. So axon and axon terminal are always connected. But in multipolar neuron, the dendrite, there are several dendrites. Several dendrites are branched out from the soma. See, one dendrite, two dendrite, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there are several dendrites in this case. So this was the distinction between unipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, and multipolar neuron. If you have any questions related to this, please leave them in the comments. And we will cover the nerve impulse in the second video, because it is a very crucial and it is very big, right? It is a very extensive topic. It also includes our nervous system that we will covering with the nerve impulse. Okay, so see ya.